we are going to learn how further you can make your sentences go together, okay? How to create more of cohesion and coherence using the right connectors. Most people suggest you use because. I'm not against that. That would be a very good one, an adverbial clause of reason. But other than because, you can use other phrases like if it were not for something or if it were not for someone. And if you're talking about a past, you might say if it had not been for. If it had not been for my dad, for instance, I wouldn't have blah, blah, blah. Or you can say, even if you use the word like something because, I would use the word primarily because. I guess that sounds more impressive than simply using the word because. Now let me give you a couple of examples. I hope you can better understand what I exactly mean by these phrases. So for instance, onto the topic of careers and stuff, you might say, I got into architecture primarily because it entails science as well as art. So primarily because. Or the next example of mine using if it had not been for or if it were not for, I would say, if it were not for my dad, it means it was because of my dad. If it were not for him, I wouldn't have decided on this major. I wouldn't have settled on this major if it were not for my dad. So probably at my father's insistence, I got into this major. If it were not for him, I wouldn't have studied this. I wouldn't have studied physics. I hate physics. It was because of my dad that I studied physics. Primarily because of my dad, I got into this major. Or for instance, I can use a different example using the phrase I told you, like half the reason. Maybe that's not all because of my dad, but half the reason was my dad. So for instance, I can say half the reason why I'm quite crazy about civil engineering is the fact that it runs in the family. I mean, I felt like I have the bone, or I have been born to work in this field, okay? I was born to do it. I hope you know what it means. So I can say half the reason why I got into something is, and then the rest of the sentence. So I can use primarily because rather than just using the word because. I can say if it were not for, or if it had not been for. And finally, you might want to end up using the word half the reason why, and then the rest of the sentence.